Hello, I'm Debra, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I go weekly, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I call this Pause and Process, and I recommend listening to my introduction to this Pause and Process series. But in a nutshell, um, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, so I want to share my experience and knowledge. But first and foremost, I'm also showing up as a human who has gone through, and we've all gone through a pandemic. There are wars going on, and what is happening in America um, is traumatizing. So much is happening too fast, too soon, too much. And that is what trauma is anything that happens too much, too fast, too soon, and is beyond our ability, our unique nervous system. It is beyond our tolerance. And so when that happens, a lot of dysregulation, dysfunction, conflict, dis-ease, disorder, a lot happens. And so in order to prevent trauma or to minimize the impact of stress and trauma, we need safe places to process. And there are many ways to process. So clearly, I'm just on YouTube here and I'm helping provide a space to teach some ways to process, but we can process by journaling, talking to our friends, going to a therapist, doing art. There's many ways to process. But the way that I'm mostly helping people is at bare minimum is labeling, noticing what's coming up in our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our relationships, our nervous system, um, so that we can make conscious and choices and responses to get our vital needs met so that we can improve what's going on in our lives. If you notice, I have this jar that I often show. This kind of represents our minds, our bodies, our nervous system. And when things are happening, events are happening, it shakes us up. And the dirt, I have dirt in here. There's also glitter, which you can't even see because I did way too much dirt. I need to add more glitter. But the dirt kind of represents all the toxins in our lives, which can be emotional, chemical, relational. There's a physical, as I mentioned, and then when things happen, it shakes us up, and then we can't see clearly, can't think clearly. We're not going to function and be our best selves. And so, why I say pause, we have to pause and stop, and you'll notice what happens to that dirt. But what I'm typically doing is I'm usually talking for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then I end with a nice mindfulness meditation or visualization. So that is the formula that I go through. If you would see, I want to talk about systemic trauma. So I'm a marriage and family therapist, which means I'm trained in systems. So I'm going to talk more about this image, but first, very quickly, very quickly again, I got my master's in human development, but this is Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model of human development. And what I love about this model is that it shows how us, when we're born, we have this individual, and I also talk about interpersonal neurobiology. Everybody's unique. There's so much that plays into the development. And then every system we interact with, as you see, friends, religious, neighborhood, the economic system, mass media, educational systems, those are macro systems. You have the norms, the values of the culture. And all these systems, you see the arrows, they're bidirectional. So you influence all the systems you're in, and all the systems you are in influence you. And then there's even time and historic influences. And so clearly, the day and age that we are in right now, it's very technological, it's 24/7 stimulation, and our nervous systems were not designed for this modern world. And so this is even more reason why we need to pause and process, because so much is happening to us at alarming rates, and that we need to take time to process. So if you even notice that it's still cloudy, but some of that dirt is settling, and this is why we need to make time to pause and process. But because um, so much is happening, and it really causes, as I already briefly mentioned, causes so much dysfunction. And so here, if we look at the individual trauma vortex, and I already described, what trauma is in a nutshell. Um, Anything that happens too much, too fast, too soon for our unique nervous system to handle and process. And so then when we get too much happening, we are going to have defenses. Now, this says responses, which again, they call it stress response scientifically. I tend to use the word reactions. um, to discern between response and reaction. So we have these fight, flight, fawn, appease, cry for help, underreactive fees. And actually, I'm going to talk more. This is why, like some people, it's a hard sell. My niche, I talk about a lot of heavy, hard topics, and so. But what I like to tell everybody is everyone has a nervous system. That is one thing that connects us all, and the autonomic nervous system. This is actually based on polyvagal theory, but it basically, even without polyvagal theory, which was discovered by Dr. Stephen Porges, we have a nervous system. And I did a talk on nervous system, so I encourage you checking out that video. Um, but what happens is and I also did talk about neuroception. I usually put the name in the title, which it means that within an eighth of a second, we are scanning the environment. Well, actually, we're scanning the environment 4 times, constantly. And then once we perceive a threat, it takes an eighth of a second for our nervous system to say, whoa, to try to go to its short-term memory and see if we need to have a reaction, a threat response. And so if we are perceiving a threat, and again, it's perceived, doesn't mean it's real, it's just that your nervous system perceives that, we are going to go to mobilized, agitated, frantic. This is fight or flight. It's called sympathetic activation. And you're starting to get overwhelmed. You don't know what to do. And this is where fight or flight comes. And then if we have no good memory of this going well, or we don't have someone near us that is giving us cues for safety and helping us feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure, then we're going to get to dorsal really quickly. Sometimes I find a lot of people with complex trauma or trauma histories are going to they get stuck between these two. They just kind of keep cycling and never ever get to here, which is ventral vagal, when we feel safe, social, and engaged, and we feel at ease, we can handle things, we can access our higher functioning skills, we can think clearly. But most of the time, again, and we're all going to go through these phases. It's so important to know that every human being is going up and down this ladder all the time. Where dysfunction and disease happens is when we get stuck. So, like, pretty much being stuck in dorsal collapse, shutdown, feeling um, like you're buried, you can't do anything, you're numb, you just can't feel anything, you're helplessness. That's pretty much, if you're stuck there for 6 weeks, that's depression. If we're stuck here in fight flight for 6 weeks, that's anxiety. And that's why every diagnosis is really coming from what state you're in, and then also when these events happen in the development of your nervous system and what was going on in your psyche and your environment at the time, and all those systems. What was going on really interplays. There's so much that goes into development. But like I said, we are all going up and down this ladder. And so what is key about this is being able to be aware of what state we're in and being able to access our resources to get our tools and environments and people and things that help us feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. So then we can move up the ladder to feel safe. And that's actually my book, How to Train Your Brain, is targeted for parents to do with their children. The parents are meant to actually do it alongside with their children, so that you get to know what helps your child feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. So you can meet them where they're at, because there is so much uniqueness to this. Everyone's unique. And that is one thing you'll hear me say a lot. Everybody is different. There's no one size fit all. Although the one thing that does fit all is compassion and feeling safe. But again, that can mean different for everybody. But you'll hear me say that a lot. So then, if going back to this, so you have an individual who has trauma, and then we have all these behaviors so like if you're in fight or flight so much, you can't access your higher functioning skills. We have so many impulsive behaviors we do. There's so many parts that come out to protect us. And, there's just so many of these behaviors that we do listed here: vigilance, addiction, violence, perfectionism, people pleasing. So I have to say, I've had perfectionism, people pleasing. Those have been some of mine. Low self esteem have been some of mine, but everybody is different. Everybody is different. But that's what happens. And then then when this is going on forever and ever and going on, then we go to also this transgenerational and developmental trauma. So trauma gets passed on. I actually did a talk on transgenerational trauma as well, from our ancestors, from our families, from lives that they lived that didn't get processed. And then it comes out in poverty, pandemics, natural disaster, disease. I mean, all these things, um, sexual, physical abuse. Uh, and then again, out here, systemic trauma vortex is war, genocide, terrorism, unjust law, food control, um, racism, sexism, political control. So there's a lot here. Actually, this I'm going to get. Obviously, this is done by Magdalena Weinstein. She's a somatic therapist. I just loved her image. It's so awesome. Really gets a lot of information on there. And so this is why so I'm talking about political stress. Like for me, being a therapist, it is maddening what is happening right now. There is so much trauma that the leader of this country that I love is is causing. And again, we need change. And and I can even see some value. There has been codependency in some countries, relying on the United States. There are a lot. There are dysfunctional patterns going on, and changes do need to be made. But it is essential that changes are made in a way where as many people as possible feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And that is not what's happening. And so I wanted to have Tuesdays talk about politics because I mentioned recently my mother had passed away, and I had wanted to do, and knowing that this was coming up, I wanted to do a support group. But I couldn't manage as I'm trying to do so much in my own life, but I need to express because um, one of the hardest things for me, it also happens that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I am a survivor, and it is. I am. I talk about sex positive. I am. It's so unbelievable how the how toxic we are. Our society is like a petri dish for sexual abuse. And so, actually, I'll share a link in my talk. Every 68 seconds, someone in the U.S. is sexually assaulted, and every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. And when it happens in childhood, and unfortunately, that's what I specialize in, that was my experience, it causes so much problems in your psyche, in your mind, and how you filter the world. And so I really encourage you looking at I share a little bit of my story, but not much, but I share so many resources because we need to talk about consent and agency, and body safety from day one of life. And so I share many resources on that. But I was curious. So for me personally, having someone who is convicted as a rapist, who was found guilty as a rapist, and then recently, I also just saw someone share that a 13-year-old had also brought a case against this leader current. I don't like to say his name, number 47, a 13-year-old brought a case. So you can Google that. And I also have another writing. I mean, I had done a writing about victim blaming when he was going through trials. It is terrifying to tell your story. So when I read that this 13-year-old, obviously she brought it to court two times in her life, and both times got scared and didn't continue, which it's terrifying. The scrutiny you go under, the victim goes under, is unbelievable. So that's on the top of my mind, and that's one of my hardest things is that I have to wake up. Fortunately, I've done so much healing, so like um, many of those negative consequences I'm not suffering from regarding that trauma. Um, but that doesn't change. But I'm actually more angry. So I'm in the present moment, and I have to wake up and say, "Wow, a rapist is leading my country." Like, wow. And then I have to sit and feel with so many individuals, men, women, children, who don't have a voice, who don't have support, and have probably. It takes on average. Actually, I just learned this. It takes on average 17 years for a victim to finally say something out loud. And that matches with me. It took me about 10 years, no, about 7 years before I said something um, out loud. But 17 years, and that actually, I mean, that's what I'm used to. But that's 17 years of suffering and silence, and why it's so important, and why I want to have an avenue to talk about this. Um, and that one relates to me. That trauma relates to me, and so I feel for every person who has been violated and abused sexually, and again, so many ways. Again, that sexual assault is just one thing. There's so many behaviors that are being represented in this administration, that are not aligned with a healthy nervous system. But this, I'm going to focus on the sexual assault one. But so I feel for anyone. And so this is, if you have any, please go find a therapist, find some support and outlet where you feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure to process. Again, I'm just doing a mini version. This is really fast here, but it's so important that you know, I have a disclaimer too, that if something comes up, you need and deserve help, and there is help, and it is possible to heal. It's phenomenal, what you can overcome with the right help and outlets and places and processing. And then my other trauma that is really making me so angry is racism and what is happening to people of color, and the history just being like how could you just, I mean, again, I know that these stories live on and these events really happen and these people have gotten, because they're humans. And that's the other thing that ticks me off. Actually, I'm going to actually read it word for word from the scientific. In 2003, it was confirmed by the completion of the Human Genome Project that 99.9% identical, that we are humans are 99.9% identical at a DNA level. And there is no genetic basis for race. No, none. Like, actually, when I first started studying this was like, I think 10 years ago, I read an article. And again, I was trying to find the article again, but it said that there was more variance in our tongue, and there's also in these ones that I was just reading now, there's more variance within a group than there is across what people are calling race. It's ludicrous to me. And so it hurts my heart to see what's happening. And that what makes me angry is so many people don't see it. And again, I study neuroscience. I understand the brain and body. I actually even understand what is going on that people are blocking, because you don't want to be challenged. It's uncomfortable to challenge your core beliefs. It's disturbing, it's unsettling, which is why I wanted to do this pause and process, to show people that they're actually loving, simple, even playful ways to sit with uncomfortable feelings. And that's why I'm going to make sure I wrap up. We're going to do a safe place imagery. Let me see. I think I showed all my images. Yes, that I wanted to go through. It really, we don't need much like that. Like, that's what is so hard for me to witness, is like, even with, like I said, we do need change. There does stuff, restructuring and systemic change that needs to happen, but there's a way to do it, and that you need. And I did a talk on different, like, the best parenting styles, which relates to this. Like, when you're a leader, you know, there's a way that shows for the best outcomes, and it's being able to have warmth and empathy, yet still expectations. You still need limits and boundaries. You know, you need both. But when we come in with a hammer, and with no warmth, you're just traumatizing people for no reason, no good reason. And we already have enough trauma in this world. And so, and actually, I was just brought one other quick story along with the, I follow lots of different people, and this protest recently was amazing. All these people, and there's even talk like, what was there really much, like, great that all these people showed up, and it's heartwarming, and it's great to see, because you're not alone. We need to feel like we have someone next to us. We are biologically wired to be in connection with people. We to be in relationship. It is, our nervous systems need it to feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. So seeing all those people speaking up and heartwarming. And then I also though read how, when there was people of color protesting not long ago, police were out. They were being arrested. It was, whereas in this one, this I didn't hear of any of that. Like, I didn't even, maybe again, there's always, everything exists on a continuum. But what this individual brought up was, it was peaceful, and the numbers were large, and there was no violence, and none of that happening. Um, Again, from what I heard. Either way, I do remember when it was happening with people of color, with the uh, massive. Yeah, I can't even remember. I was actually living in New Zealand at the time, but from then I remember so much violence, the police coming in, and this person, maybe the police learned, and again, maybe there was more going on. Either way, um, these all matter. This is like it's and that's like and me, I'm a highly sensitive person, and I just don't. I was just born just very aware of things, and so these topics, I didn't have a choice as I was presented with a lot of harsh things young in life. So that adds to it because your environment matters. And so I'm just very open, and I really see a lot of injustice and a lot of pain and suffering. And that's why I'm here to show that there are lovely ways and easy. I say easy because they're simple, but they're not easy to implement because that, as I mentioned, it takes an eighth of a second for our nervous system to have a reaction and an activated defense. And then it takes on average 20 to 30 minutes for our nerve to settle, to get calm. So now look at that. You can see through that now. Um, and that's on average. It takes 20 minutes to get settled. And that's without any new stimulation. Because soon as, someone, you know, says something mean to you, looks at you, or, flicks you off, whatever it is that's happening, that shakes you right up again. And we're right there again. So I just shared a lot there. Thank you for listening. And now I'm going to walk us through a lovely, safe place guided imagery. Because another fun neuroscience fact is our minds, our brains, don't know the difference between real or imagined. And that's why we can still have this huge anxiety attack for something that may not be real, but it feels real. We're perceiving a threat based on a lifetime of situations and experiences that likely did really happen. Might not be happening now, but did happen at some point. So I'm going to use this. I walk all my clients. I have every client that I work with come up. I'm trained in EMDR, so there's resourcing, and a safe place is one of them. And so I have my clients come up with a safe place. So what I'm going to have to do is I hope you feel comfortable where you're at. If you're not, again, just listen to my words. You don't have to actually engage in it, but just, listen if you can. But it's important that you feel you're in a space where you feel comfortable, safe, and that there's no distractions or minimal distractions. So I want you to get comfortable, and I tend to like to close my eyes. You can partially close them or close them completely. So I apologize. Like I know I'm online and I'm like, I want to give eye contact, but I tend to naturally close my eyes. And so once you get settled in your body, so if you want to lay down, stay seated, doesn't matter, whatever feels right. I want you to notice how it feels. And let your body begin to relax by releasing areas of tension by breathing. And I want you to take slow, deep breaths. And as you exhale, imagine letting the tension go. And where are you feeling tense in your body? I'm actually noticing that I notice this a lot when I'm doing these talks, and I feel tension in my feet. So I'm going to lower them down to the ground. And focus attention on the area. So now, like, I'm noticing tension in my feet. So I'm going to breathe energy into my feet. And as I breathe out, I'm going to notice I'm relaxing on the floor. But a lot of times it's my neck, it's my shoulders. So listen to your body. Every body is different. And as you're breathing in and out, I want you to allow yourself to picture in your mind's eye a safe place. Don't overthink it. Just what's the first place that comes to mind? And it could be a place that you've been to before or that you dream of going to. It could be a beautiful garden, the mountains, it could be the field or the beach. I often choose, I mentioned I lived in New Zealand, and there's this one particular forest that I would go to. And that's often the one that comes to mind. There's also quite a few beach places that come to mind. But again, it's really important that you pick a place that feels calm, safe, serene, and protected. I want you to imagine the details of your surrounding. So, we're going to go through all your senses here. So, first, we're going to start with sight, and you're going to notice, the beautiful colors, if there's foliage, the hues. What season is it? Right now, in this side of the world, it is spring. Although I know on the other side, they are heading into fall. But you notice the ground, the earthy soil, the rock, the sand. Are you barefooted? What are you wearing? What does it feel like beneath your feet? So that's also touch. So, you first we're doing sight, and then also notice how things feel. So the clothing that you're wearing, how does it feel against your skin? What you're touching? And then what smells do you notice? Is it sweet, pungent, or refreshing? I know with spring, there's a lot of fresh smell. And then you want to think about the sounds that are happening at your safe place. Do you hear birds? Do you hear the crinkling of leaves? Your foot as you walk? Are there people? Sometimes your safe place you're alone, and sometimes you want to be around people. So are there people, or maybe there's specific people that you love? Children laughing and playing. Are there people singing? Is there music? What sounds do you hear at your safe place? And let these sounds lull you peacefully. And notice again if there's any, so we've done taste, your sounds, sight, hearing, and then there's even taste. Notice while you're there if you have a taste of something. And I'm going to go back to sensations. Notice any sensations like the breeze, the wind, or the warm sun. Notice how it feels on your face, your hands, your body. Is it warm? Is it cool? Allow yourself to take in all the senses of feeling calm, serene, and peaceful. And I want you to allow yourself, if this feels comfortable, to lie down in your safe place and feel the ground beneath your body. Notice the gentle earth below, warming you, holding you. Imagine the earth cradling you, allowing you to relax and feel safe during this meditation, just like you were there at this safe place. And whether you're visualizing standing or sitting or laying down in your safe place, imagine the ground absorbing any stressors, toxins, suffering. If water is in your safe place, imagine like just sending worries to your water. Or if it's windy, imagine letting go anything that's disturbing you or stressing you. Let it go in the wind, let it go in the water, or let it soak into the ground. Whatever resonates for you, there is no right or wrong in this space. This is your safe space. And continue to breathe in and out. If you're able to see clouds in your safe place or the blue sky, another visual to see the clouds. And just like the clouds are slowly moving, but that's what's going to happen with thoughts, feelings. Everything is really, though, feels so permanent and real in the moment of stress, because that's a byproduct of stress. But really, it's moving, it's impermanent, it's temporary, it will go by. And I want you to notice how you are feeling in your safe place. Are you feeling lighter, at ease, less tension? Noticing sensations in your mind, your body, your spirit. Connect to your faith, God. While you're in your safe place, this is actually when it's easier to connect. That's why it's so important to make space to pause. And as you thoroughly visualize this place, now we're going to prepare to leave. Take your time and allow yourself to come back to the room you're in. So you may notice your feet, your body on the floor that you're in now. You can slowly open your eyes and take in what is in your environment now. I am actually in one of my happy, safe places, which is my sunroom. And I get to see water and nature, so that's why it's one of my favorite spaces that I choose to have my office in. So I encourage you, wherever your environment you're in, because as I showed the systems, your environment matters, and so fill it with things that nurture you, that ground you, that help you feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And it doesn't matter whether others like it or not. This is, we're not, hopefully they're things that are soothing and safe and send messages of compassion, and joy. And the beauty with this safe place visualization is you can do it anytime you want. I highly encourage taking a moment. This is why I'm doing this at lunchtime, but like weave it in maybe in the morning when you wake up or when you go to sleep. And as I mentioned, our brain mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagination, so it believes what you feed it. So please, I encourage you um, to fill your mind and body and spirit with things that feel true and meaningful and nurturing to you. So thank you so much for listening. And please follow, subscribe, and listen to many of my other talks. Take wonderful care.